All right, it's official. We are live. Let's see what is shaking here. It's a little bit different than normal. I don't think I actually scheduled this one, so I would be surprised if anyone was here. But we'll kick this thing off. We got at least plenty to talk about today, in the sense of there's a lot going on in crypto land. So welcome. Today is what is it? January 17th. Jesus, I'm getting ahead of myself. All kinds of stuff going on. I guess we start the show off with reminding you to be careful about your crypto as we go further and further into what may or may not be a crypto bull run. You're going to have a lot of people in Discord and wherever trying to scam you. There'll be people in your DMs saying, hey, check this out. Check out this airdrop. Claim this fast. Get this NFT. Whatever it is. Just be really careful out there. Crypto is super fun. It's also pretty goddamn dangerous as far as being safe financially. I know that's generally the promise is like, oh, your keys are your crypto, et cetera. But if you screw things up on your own, which I have done to an enormous cost to myself, it doesn't matter how secure crypto is, you are the weak link there. So just be careful. Let's see if I'd roll Joey in here. What's up, Joey? Let me see if I can get you in here and maybe not call you Cam.
Cam.
Yeah. Not this time. Joey, who not at Helium Foundation. What's up, dog?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Happy short week.
Oh, is it what? Yeah, I guess so.
If you Monday off.
No, I did not. No. I generally don't take these holidays off. It's just like they gave me, basically all these people who gave us holidays just bought me extra time to work while everyone else is taking time off so I can get ahead. That's my...
Yep. I put a hotspot on my roof, so...
I like it. Did you get a haircut, dog?
Yeah, about 3 minutes ago.
Oh, so. Looks great. Looks good. You got your fancy new microphone. You ready to go? What's the t-shirt? Oh, yeah. Is there anything special with the Foundry thing?
Foundry? Boy,
or no? Okay.
I'd have to check my backstory on that one, but they're in the crypto space. They do
something.
All sorts of stuff. So
okay,
yeah,
cool. I talked to who was it yesterday? This dude who is part of the Lime SDR Kickstarter. I'm going to shoot over an email intro to you probably later today if you're cool with it.
Yeah.
But the general idea, which I thought was pretty cool, was that the same company or same group of people, and he was like the VP of IoT at Ubuntu. Like he didn't seem like a kook. He seemed like he was pretty sharp to cat. Martin something. Is they're going to sell an SDR box. You connect whatever antenna you want to it. It'll have some compute. It'll have some storage. And then that box can do whatever it is that you want to do on Helium add your app. And so they'll do like secure apps on it. So if you're like, oh, I want to do Helium IoT, cool. Add the Helium IoT app. Some fancy secure magic shit in the background. You're off to the races. If Helium adds Wi-Fi later, not adds Wi-Fi later. If it adds whatever it adds later, Bluetooth, etc.
Right.
Because it's an SDR, it'll just be like, oh, cool. I'll just quickly reconfigure myself to do this as well.
Yeah, I'm be curious to chat with them because the LoRaWAN stack, part of it is an SDR. But then there's a whole bunch of other stuff that's packed into one of those concentrators. So I'm curious how they handle that, I guess, from just a pure software side.
Yeah, we'll get you connected and figured out. I think speaking of that, I was doing some Meshtastic stuff yesterday. Do you remember that? Did you ever look at that project?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So Jerm and I were talking about it because now I've got these. I've like refound it after 3 years of not touching it. After like it was the thing that got me into Helium, and then I forgot about it because Helium was all encompassing for a while. And then someone read I'd asked a question on a Meshtastic discourse blog. Jesus, 3 years ago. And they're like, hey, I saw you're in San Diego. You should join the Meshtastic San Diego group. I was like, okay, cool. Like the last time I tried it, that shit didn't work. But okay. Maybe in 3 years they've made some progress, and they have. It's super cool. I dug around in my pile of shit that I'd bought early on, and I fired up a couple nodes. And I've got one on my roof. I've got one actually sitting right here next to me. But the cool thing this is what I was talking with Jerm about, or Jerm's idea. He's like, dude, I think we could do, what is it, a MUX multiplexer, and take the Helium hotspot and have it, I guess the way you use it is you MUX. I don't know what the fuck it is, but basically a goddamn Helium hotspot can do both Helium stuff and Meshtastic stuff and just swap back and forth. which would be cool.
Right. Yeah, because the Meshtastic project runs on the same ISM, 915 here. That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
And then you would just have like a whole mesh layer built into everything as well.
Like that. Like how fucking rad would that be? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, now you get 600,000 nodes on Meshtastic. I bet they'd be excited about that. But
yeah.
it was just an idea.
That's cool to hear that like just the project itself is taken off, because like 𝐒𝐻𝐸𝐽 and some of these others that we use for mappers and dev boards and stuff like that, like a lot of times they just sell them as Meshtastic nodes. It's like a good out of the box, like here, plug it in.
Yeah. I got this guy right here.
Oh yeah, yep, I got 2 of those.
So, and it's a little 𝐒𝐻𝐸𝐽, which is now apparently out of stock. Now, I mean, there's not like hardware companies selling specific Meshtastic devices that look super cool. I don't know. And I guess the funny part was that I get in their Discord and I'm like, oh, hey, what's going on? Blah, like just talking. And they're like, hey, does anyone know anything about antennas, or like what to put up, or how we get the best antenna? I was like, oh.
Your tail starts wagging.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
So let's see. I got a bunch of news here, Joey, to hit. Do you have anything that you want to start off with? Anything you feel is critical? Or do you want to just go through stuff?
Well, yeah, I'll do one little shout out on the Helium side. We've, our protocol devs have been doing a ton of work on the wallet app. And one of the really cool things that we're going to see in this upcoming release, or if you're on the beta channel through test flight, you've already got it. But governance is now back in the app. So all of the voting, and then additionally like staking and claiming for 𝐒𝐻𝐸𝐽 positions and all of that gets to be managed directly in there. So this is a move away from Realms, which is the platform that we used out of the gate following the Solana transition. And now we've got this thing that we've called modular governance, and it has the opportunity to be leveraged throughout the entire Solana ecosystem, that cool sort of composability aspect of the ecosystem. And so keep an eye out for that. There's actually a test vote up right now. So if anyone is on that test flight channel, you can do 𝐒𝐻𝐸𝐽 vote for what your favorite ice cream is. So worth giving it a try. And yeah, classic ice cream.
Crush everything.
No, it's vanilla. It's
Joey,
obvious.
Come on, get your shit together, dude.
All right. Well,
it doesn't say it on here, but I'm on test flight from 1,000,000 years ago. It didn't say anything about governance.
Okay. Well, there's probably been a couple of releases since those release notes.
Okay.
But if you fly through that, there's a little bank-looking icon, and you pop in there and you'll see what's going on.
I wonder if I can give away all my personal information, and let me see if
let's see those 12 words.
Yeah. Just I'll do the dumbest thing possible. Input. Nope. It's not taken. I thought I could plug my phone into the screen. And which I've got this goddamn switcher that should be able to do it, but I think there's something wrong with the cable I've got. Kind of a pain in the ass. Oh, actually no, I know why that didn't work, because that fucking USB cable is plugged into my power bank, not into the switcher. But this thing should fucking work. Let me see if I can do it, because that'd be fun to do live. It might take a second here. Okay.
Cool. Yeah, you can swing the vote favor of chocolate, and I'll go rally something against you
with all of my HNT. I got all these questions. Actually, I shouldn't talk about this when you're on here, but people are asking me how to swap back and forth HNT for mobile and what's the most advantageous. And I was like, dude, A, I don't know. B, nobody knows. C, be fucking careful, because anything to do with crypto and tokens and the rest of it is just like, I don't know. You're not asking to lose your ass, but you're risking an awful lot by not knowing what you're doing. So,
right. Siegfried threw a question up here. I'll go ahead and read this off. He says, is anything on desktop regarding the token lock being discontinued? Modular is returning some 404 since yesterday, and Realms also acting up. Is that being discontinued sometime in the future? So I believe Realms will continue to operate. Like, the positions and stuff are distinct from realms. So we're sort of using two interfaces to access the same thing. So you could use realms, you can use modular governance to manage these things, manage the votes. The votes themselves are being put up distinctly on a platform. So everything that's on realms from a voting perspective will stay there. Everything that's being newly launched on modular governance will be up there. There's a couple of hip votes that are coming out that will still be on realms. And then from then on, everything will be on modular governance. Regarding the sort of acting up part of it, a lot of this is probably having to do with just an increased activity on Solana generally. And so what we've started implementing across almost all transactions is priority fees. So this is basically taking the base fee, adding one more land port, is just enough to kick you over that baseline. And then those fees come, or all of those transactions go through pretty seamlessly. So a lot of those have been added into the latest releases of Wallet app. We've been adding them across the protocol. So oracles, all that other stuff that has to interface with the chain. Some work in progress on that, but yeah.
All right. Fuck yeah, dude.
Yeah. Did you get that thing set up?
It's almost there, but I probably have to do like a quick figure it out. I can see this stupid QR code on it, but I don't know what happens when I hit it. So it's like I've got the phone is plugged into the switcher, and on the switcher I can see that it says it's plugged in, but there's some QR code weirdo thing that I've got to figure out. So maybe I try not to figure it out live because I'm generally not good at live stuff.
All good.
Or like live math.
I've got like a demo wallet somewhere, but
all right.
Yeah, I won't try and do it live either because I'll probably end up.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll
showing
fuck
off
around.
my.
There's
account.
like no, I'm not going to do that. Okay, so I've got actually a ton of other news, and I saw some of the stuff was in the notes. Wi-Fi DABA. Since you clearly know everything about Wi-Fi DABA in the future, Joey, should I just put you on the spot and be like, hey, when are they going to be part of a Helium SubDAO?
That has been completely off of my radar. So,
okay, so they had their town hall yesterday. They talked about this. So let's see. One thing that's cool is we're seeing hardware sell out pretty quickly again. For a while, it didn't. So there was this kind of crypto winter in that extended a DePIN, and projects wouldn't sell out. So whatever the project was, they put their hardware on. They were kind of used to in the summer, crypto summer of whatever it was, DePIN summer. Things would sell out right away. It didn't. That lasted for, I don't know, 12, 18 months. And then recently, we started to see projects sell out. So Helium outdoor mobile hotspots sold out really quickly. The indoor hotspots, I think, sold out pretty quickly, and then they got restocked, and now the outdoor is getting restocked. 𝐒𝐻𝐸𝐻 sold out all of their relays in like 31 minutes. And then Wi-Fi DABA sold out 1,000 of their stations in something like, I don't know, like less than 13 days. They thought the 1,000 stations were going to last until March. I don't think they planned on, just how fast it was going to go. And some folks who, I don't think they understood, this is funny, that there are a group of folks in Helium who saw what happened early on. And as soon as they see hardware, they're just like, yep, I've got 10 grand set aside in a bank account. Like, they're not like me, which I don't have that set aside for crypto for sure. And they're like, yeah, I'll buy up every single one of those things that come out. And so they sold out really quick. So successful there. And now they've got to figure out what's going to happen next and when they're going to get the next stock in. So what they call each of these seasons, not batches, but I'll call them batches. So they got to figure out when they're going to do batch 2. And they had a really nice approach to this. I thought was cool, Joey, is instead of saying a date, like they said the date live, they're like, oh, we're going to do it in March. And then they're like, wait a second. No, what's actually going to happen is we've got all these milestones we have to hit. And once we've hit the milestones, then we'll open season 2. And that should be around this time, but these milestones have to be hit first. I thought it was a pretty cool approach to just messaging out how it works. Because they said, like, hey, if we set a date, we're guaranteed we're going to miss it.
Right. So, yeah. No, little transparency through the steps to get there is a nice way to do it.
Yeah. So that's what's going on. Wi-Fi DABA. Let's see. Yeah, we hit the milestone stuff. And then big news over in WeatherXM. They just launched their Arbitrum Sepolia testnet. And the rewards mechanism 2.0 is up and running. So if you're on WeatherXM, you will probably see all kinds of shit breaking on your app today. You'll see rewards appear, disappear. If you want to go through the claiming process, they are deep into the fuck around and find out portion of this, and it's causing a fair amount of consternation over in their Discord where people are like, hey, how come this isn't working? And we just have to do a better job of saying, look, you're still in testnet. Like nothing you do really matters right now. Don't give up your 12 words because that will matter. But everything else, like if you just keep your app updated and wait for these guys to figure it out, it's going to be fine. So
cool.
Yeah.
So now's the time to start petitioning them to move to Solana, right?
Yeah. Very, very unlikely. I talked to them a bunch about that. They had some pretty good, actually, some really good reasons for moving to Arbitrum. And I was like, oh, cool. Fair enough. Like I'm not.
Yeah, I'll be
good.
Excited to sort of learn a little more about it.
Yeah, they had a bunch of good reasoning behind it. What do you got? Is there other comments coming?
I'm checking my app. I got 18 WXMs. I'll go learn about that more later.
Yeah. So I think what you're seeing right now is you're either seeing the old beta tokens, which if you've had a WeatherXM station up for a while, you probably have a couple hundred or 1,000 or whatever it is. You might be seeing the new ones. It was one of those things where, God, I gotta be honest, I probably should have done a better job of testing this thing on my end so I knew what was going on. But I just made the fatal assumption that everybody understood this was fuck around and find out time, and they didn't. They're just like, oh no, this should be perfect. Why is my thing not working? You stole all my rewards. No.
Yep.
Like, not only did you not read the announcements, but crazy shit's going on. So
this is where like our Solana migration was kind of magical. Noah did his breakpoint talk where it was just like nothing happened, so there was no news. But this stuff is hard to do, and it's hard to manage all of those pieces. So yeah, anyone in the WeatherXM,
they decided to do it in public, which I think is, I think they're just different methods. I think it's super cool to be like, yeah, we're going to roll this thing out. It's going to break. You're going to be a part of it. You're going to help us find bugs. Like that's the deal. I think that's a cool way to do it, but it's totally not for everybody.
Yeah. I've been getting a ton of value out of just having this thing that lets me know, how much rainfall, like I've got runoff stuff to consider. I want to know, what's the temperature, all that fun stuff, right? Yeah. What's the wind? What's going on?
It's crazy because, and I think, maybe we have the luxury, Joe, of we got into all of this DePIN stuff pretty early. And so in the sense of like, all right, you got a boatload of tokens that for a long time have been worth nothing. But I think more importantly, we got in early enough to see like, this is how these projects generally go, is things are like constantly breaking and constantly improving. Mm-hmm. And you also, with I think the very best projects, you get utility out of them right away. Like when the first Helium node stood up, or when I put up my Helium hotspot, I had LoRa coverage and I started fucking around with, that was the whole reason I did it. Was like, I think I was tracking paragliders within, like a month or less. And that was totally on me just because I didn't know how to do any of this stuff. So I was like, oh, what do I need to buy? I need to buy this tracking device. How does it work? What's a console? All that stuff was a mystery, but that had nothing to do with like the minute I plugged that thing on or plugged that thing in and it worked, like I had a LoRaWAN coverage. And it's the same thing with this WeatherXM, which is sitting right behind me right there.
Oh, yeah.
It's like I've had a weather station here at the house, which is, it's kind of cool. I could look outside. It's San Diego, so it's fucking always sunny at 70. But it's been super cool to put up a weather station out at a place where we paraglide. And we've never had a weather station before because they always get vandalized. And we didn't want to put an $1,800 station out there. But this thing was $400. I was like, yeah. If I won't be super happy if some jackwagon fucking shoots it with a 12 gauge. But it's not going to crush me. And it's been super cool to be like, oh yeah, it's not good to fly, or this is the best times to fly at this season, which we haven't really dialed in ever. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah. And like the other thing that I've had in my head is like in the Bay Area here, you've got kite surfers, you've got paragliders, like all sorts of stuff. And it's all around the San Francisco Bay. There's Helium coverage literally everywhere. So you can just go, throw one of these things on a fence post and now you know what's going on.
Yeah. Let's see, HyperM. I just feel like when you pay for something, you expect for it to work, especially when they're expensive. Dude, so I'll put this up here. I think this is look, these are great comments. Okay, so I've got 2 stations. I think actually they gave me one of them. Most of the stuff I buy, but I think they sent me the helium station. So I've definitely paid for one of them. Both of them have worked pretty much the entire time. The only time mine haven't worked, I looked at them and it wasn't connected, and I was like, oh, I'll just go do something else for an hour or a day, and I came back and it fixed itself. I think the only thing I've ever done is power cycled it and it worked. So HyperREM, like I'm not saying yours has worked flawlessly, which is pretty much what mine have done, but fuck, most of them do. And then as far as an expensive weather station, dude, these are $400, $600 maybe. I think the super fancy ones are going to be 900 was the goal. I actually haven't even looked at the store. Like I helped run the weather stations at the Paragliding Club. We would routinely spend $1,500 to $1,800 on a station. So these, I mean, it's look, it's $500.
It's a
is
deal.
not fucking cheap, but it's a pretty goddamn good deal.
I mean,
especially when you can throw it up anywhere and not worry about connectivity, or almost anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, to break it apart a little bit, you've got base hardware costs. You're talking a couple $100 right there.
Yep.
You have, if we're talking about the helium one, you have connectivity just completely included.
Yep.
Now you literally put the batteries in and it works, which is magic. I don't even get me started on that part.
Yeah.
And then
forget it. Yeah.
You've got this team that builds an app that lets you see your data both live and historic with forecasting. So like there's all of these layers piled on top of this thing that once you look at it sort of holistically on that point, most people generally just expect the app to be free, right? Like that's, you go buy something on Amazon, it comes with some sort of terrible app or whatever. It's just there.
Yep.
The WeatherXM app's pretty darn good. It's fast. The API is open. You can do whatever you want with that data. Like there's a lot going for it.
Someone did something the other day, and I think they made an announcement like, hey, and this might have been in their Slack, but maybe it was in their Discord. They're like, hey, whoever is doing, what was it like? It wasn't TTN. Whatever it was, like, whoever's doing this one thing with the API, please stop it.
Sure. Yeah. I'm probably going to end up in that boat here soon. We've got an open API that we just launched for helium hotspots.
Okay.
And it'll probably come back to bite us, but for the time being, it's out there.
Dude, we got a longtime listener. And actually, Jamie, you've been on the show. I mean, it's literally years ago now. You're in the market for CO2 sensors. Dude, I've got some on the bench back there. I'll fucking send it to you. Send me an address. I was getting, what the fuck was the company? It's a Swedish company, 𝐒𝐩𝐨𝐬𝐶, ELSYS, for CO2 sensors. So, yeah.
And then there's Sensirion.
IKEA one?
That was a particulate sensor.
Okay. Yep, that's right.
And it's scraping the bottom of quality, given it's like this IKEA, $10 sensor. But they work pretty darn well for a while, and then they start giving some sort of funny readings that I've experienced. But Sensirion makes some really robust sensors in the particulate space, in the CO2, like all that stuff. And if you dig into the white papers of how these things work, it's like they measure, if I'm remembering, it's photoacoustic, so it actually like blasts the air with some little laser and then listens to the sound that it makes. Like,
hell yeah.
It's some weird physics that I was like, wait, you can do that? Like what? So that there's some really cool stuff in how you do these sensing things, but suffice to say, somebody's figured all this stuff out. You can I2C plug this thing into a microcontroller. You're starting to read some data. So there's tools and resources to get that done.
Yeah, and for folks who don't know what I2C is, and I didn't know for a long time, and it is still just mind-boggling to me that the way it's explained, it's like, hey, it's a pipe just sending like pulses back and forth, and you can put a bunch of different devices on one of these pipes, and the fucking magical controller at the end of it is like, oh, that pulse is coming from the temperature and that pulse is coming from the pressure, and it reads them and it sorts it out. Like, goddamn, we are just fucking living in the most amazing time where there's just flat out fucking magic happening right in front of us, and anyone can do it. You can attach, you don't need to do anything for it to work. I attached 2 of these I2C enabled sensors to a board the other day, and I'm like, this will never work. It was, I don't know, like CO2 and oxygen. And yep, sure enough, it's just like, oh yeah, it sorted itself out totally fine.
Yeah, no, it's the shoulders of
Crazy.
giants. Like we get to play with this stuff like Lego, and it's pretty
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, no, it is badass. Let's see, and I'll actually talk a little bit about that sensor project later, because I think I'm just going to build the whole thing in the open, which would be fun. I want to hit, so 𝐒𝐻𝐻𝐬𝐨𝐬𝐡𝐢𝐻 is a client of Goldhawks. They're doing privacy stuff. So I didn't know much about this. Obviously, I'm not the most private person. So personally, to me, it's not super important for me to be private. Like, part of what I do is this fucking public thing. But I sat down and talked with one of their guys the other day, and it was just, it's super cool what they're doing and what all these privacy-centric networks are doing. And the way that he went through and kind of described how the internet works, and he's a longtime network engineer for XYZ, whatever companies. And it's like, fuck. I think he said it a couple times. The internet was not built to be private or secure. Like, it was built for people to communicate. And it made me think about like all the balanced way offs of like, all right, you want things to be fast and super easy and to go everywhere and have like total access. And then you also want things to be private. You have to really think about what you're doing online and what your goals are. But super cool to see that kind of project come into the DePIN space, where it's like, yep, you buy this little box. It's the same thing as everything else. You buy the box, you plug it in. It then provides a relay for nodes to go through to make things more private. And there's a bunch of fairly technical magic that goes on in the background, but super cool to see. And then they had, they're bringing on partners all the time. They brought on these guys from the Enigma Fund. That dude was so fucking sharp. Like, listening to him was like, oh, hell yeah. Super smart cat. Really putting it together well. Yeah. Super cool stuff.
So I've tried to do a little bit of research on 𝐒𝐻𝐻𝐬𝐴, and I'm familiar with Tor.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's this means to sort of pop your internet out in a bunch of places,
Yep.
Everywhere, everything all at once, right? So it pretty neat, you know, routing layer on top of the internet.
Yeah.
The thing that I didn't understand for that project, so they get folks to stand up these nodes.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. I didn't understand the, I guess, token model that they were aiming for. Like, do you use this network by, like, I'm in such a helium state of mind, so I could just be thinking about this wrong. But like, is there a burn side of it, or like, what's the whole
funny
picture
that you
of that?
asked, Joey. And I fucking swear to God, I didn't pay Joey to ask this question. We haven't talked about this at all. So they hired Max, of course, to help them with the token side. So very likely they'll institute a burn piece to it. If we think of it in a really general sense, all of these token incentives are to do what's healthy and good for a network. So in that case, you might want your messages to go faster. You might want more storage. If you think about these really secure networks, there is basically an entrance to the internet, which is you getting on, so your computer going out to the internet, and then there's an exit where people can watch and say like, oh, Nick went on, or maybe they don't see Nick. They see like something came out of like the cloud and looked at this website on baseball, right? Or whatever the thing was. And then it's really difficult to track it back through these networks to go from baseball back into the cloud and then get back to my computer and see that, oh, Nick was looking at baseball. So some of the stuff that 𝐒𝐻𝐻𝐬𝐴 can do that's pretty cool is you never actually leave that cloud. So if you wanted to be a nonprofit and you didn't want anyone to see what you're kind of popping out of the cloud to do, you might keep all of your documents inside of that. And I'm butchering all the terminology here, but inside of that like secret cloud, so that there is no what's called an exit node. There's no way for you to pop out, and everything stays inside that and is much more secure than if you pop out and look at the public internet. So there's some ideas there where it's like, all right, how fast do you want it to happen? I got to be careful. How secure do you want to be? I'm not sure if that's it, but certainly that seems to me something that's important. And then do you want to store stuff inside of the 𝐒𝐻𝐻𝐬𝐴 network versus do you just want the ability to browse privately or anonymously? So
cool.
I don't know if that answers your question,
Right.
but yeah, Max.
No,
is on
it
the
does. Like, well,
fucking awesome.
Partially like why I couldn't figure it out is they're working on it. So
yeah,
that answers that question, right?
Yep. And they've published some tokenomic stuff that they published tokenomics papers. They hired a guy to do it, and I'm sure he did a good job. I just think that, love him or hate him, I don't think there's anyone better in the world than Max Gold at tokenomics right now. I just don't, I've talked to a lot of these people. I don't think there's anyone out there that's better. He doesn't always do a great job of making a lot of friends, but goddamn, that guy knows what's going on when it comes to incentives.
Yeah, his head's clearly in the game. I know.
So he's always fucking thinking about it, Joey. He calls me up the other day. We talk, God, we probably talk 10 times a day most days. I bet if it averages out, we're on 4 calls a day with each other every day. Awesome. He calls me the other day. He's like, hey, dude, make sure you're mapping today on your helium stuff. And I was like, oh, why today and not any other day? He's like, well, there's snowstorms across the country. So most people aren't going to be leaving their house. And because there's going to be this the same amount of rewards, those of you who map get more. Like, he's just always fucking thinking about this stuff.
This reminds me of the Silicon Valley thing where he gets all the hamburgers and he's like, cicadas. The sesame seeds are not going to be, buy me sesame seeds because the cicadas are going to eat all the sesame seeds, and I'm going to
clean up on the burger market or whatever. Yeah, totally.
He's just, go find it on YouTube. I've remembered everything in that series.
Yeah, it's funnily enough, Max likes that. He'll send me like some episode or some clip for an episode because I never watched it. He's like, dude, how did you never see this thing?
It's classic. Yeah,
it's good to be around people.
You know the backstory there. The writers actually consulted with the Helium team, for I think the last series or last season of that series.
I didn't know that. No, that's awesome.
Yeah. I think cc's has some fun sort. Oh, I'm saying series, and my home assistant is waking up. I think cc's has some fun stories around chatting with those folks.
Yeah. 619. I'll see where Max is doing the people tokens. Let's see. And Siegfried, some understands tokenomics. I'm not sure what that is. Look, I'm not saying that nobody else understands it. I've talked to a lot of people about it. I don't think anyone has a better understanding than Max. Could be wrong. I'm biased. He's my fucking partner, so take that with a grain of salt, but certainly he's up there in the top. I don't know, 1%. Okay. Derek, did you post the contact info of the guy last week who's working in STEM EDU former military? Nope, I did not. In fact, I don't think I posted that thing. We said one thing in there that I was like, oh, I shouldn't have asked that question. I set him up to say something that he shouldn't have said. So I just removed the whole thing. I meant to cut it out, but I just haven't reposted it. So if any of you do want to talk to him, super fascinating guy. He's not like that private. Just reach out to me and I'll connect you. Oh, Siegfried typo. Okay. Let's see. So we talked about the Helium app being new. We talked about WeatherXM, DABA, ATOR. DePIN State is doing a Twitter space on 0900 Pacific on Friday with the streamer folks. I talked to one of the streamer guys the other day doing my homework on it and catching up. Super cool to see what they're doing. Goddamn, this is just like, if you're interested in what's happening in technology and stuff in like blockchain and decentralized land, it's just such a cool, DePIN is just so fucking crazy awesome to be a part of it. So, yeah.
I'm going to remote into a computer over here because I think it's sucking up all my bandwidth.
Okay. Yeah, I see you're getting fuzzy.
Hopefully I'm less fuzzy now. Yeah.
Yeah. I had this temporary desire that I just squashed. I was like, dude, I don't have time for another project. But we were talking in the GK Discord about having your own home AI. And one of the guys was like, oh yeah, you could just buy a server for like $300 and buy this one. And then you buy this GPU card for $50 and you plug them together. And then you do this other thing and you build a thing and you got the blah. And I was like, dude, this sounds awesome. I'm totally going to do it. And then I stepped back and I was like, I do not have the time to do, I really want to do that. I do not have the time. If I could clone myself, fucking clone 2 would be on that motherfucker, but no.
Yeah. You'll catch it in a year. It'll be a little more stable. You plug and play that thing with a Docker image or something. And
and then I spent, I was walking around. I was like, well, I could, if I hit the lotto, then I'd buy a bunch of H1000 or H100s, whatever it is. And I build my own data center and have a AI thing for my neighborhood. And I was like, I came back in and sat down. I was like, right, fucking no more of that.
So some of these AI companies, I think, did fundraises just based on the fact that they had H100s, H1000s, whatever they're called. It's
which are enormously expensive. At least when I looked at them yesterday, they're $30,000 versus these NVIDIA Tesla GPUs are like $60 on eBay, and they're not as
Right.
good, but who's got 30 grand? A lot of people got $60.
Right.
So.
I mean, anything that gets me a little bit, I mean, the state of Home Assistant stuff today is frankly pretty terrible. So I don't know if you mess with that stuff in your house, but I do Siri, and then it's like, hey, turn the lights off, and it's like, what? Come on, turn the lights off.
Speaking of that, so let's see. Do I skip down? Yeah, I'll get the other stuff later. Actually, we'll do this super quick. There was a talk this morning with Abai, IoTeX, Deemer, and KuCoin at 5 a.m. Pacific that I missed.
Okay.
So
I missed
don't know
that for sure.
said.
I was sleeping.
Yeah, but anything Abai says is usually worth listening to.
Yeah.
Coinbase officially decides to add support for Honey. That's a big deal.
That's great. Yeah.
And then we've got this last two things. What else you got, Joey?
Just on the topic of Twitter Spaces, we've been hopping on a lot of them. I did one last week and brought Abai on with me. There were 1,600 people on it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so it was pretty cool to talk to, pretty crypto native audience, but not necessarily super familiar with Helium.
Yep.
And those folks had awesome questions. This was formerly Whalecoin Talk, now Moby Media. Our host was Noah WCT, I think, on Twitter.
Yeah.
And you know this guy?
No, it's just like we know all these people, and I think we were talking the other day, like I know everybody on the internet by their screen name. So it's like, hey, you got to meet my buddy Dognuts. It's like, I don't know his fucking name. I just know his screen name.
Yeah. I went out with some Solana people last week, and I couldn't for the life of me remember their real names. It's like, I know your Twitter. That's it. So
Yeah. People call me Gristle all the time, and I'm like, I fucking go for it.
Yeah, at least my screen name's Jay Hiller. Like I, somewhat map in there, but
yeah. No, it's
Don't get
maybe that's about as private as I'll ever get. Is that most of my stuff is Gristleking online, but God, you search Nick Hawks, you're gonna find out the rest of my crazy life.
Yep.
Let's see. So we were talking about the Home Assistant, and have I played with that? And then the Siri thing, where you ask Siri to do something and it does it, or maybe it doesn't. Did you see, let's see, I'll preface this with, I recently wrote a blog post that I put on Twitter, and it got more views than anything else I've ever put on Twitter. It got something like 70,000 views because it was about this thing called the Rabbit R1. Have you seen this thing?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So this thing is a little device the size of, what do they say, like a half stack of Post-it notes. And it's got a screen, it's got a scroll wheel. It's designed by 𝐒𝐩𝐨𝐬𝐸 Engineering, which I'd never heard of, but apparently they're badass designers. It seems like when you say 𝐒𝐩𝐸𝐸 Engineering, it's like saying the Pope for Catholics. They're like, oh yeah, I trust everything that those guys do. What's up, Keenan? So here's how this thing went down. Is I'm on Discord, I think like last Tuesday morning. One of the guys came on in the GK server and was like, hey, has anyone seen this rabbit thing? It looks cool. I looked at it and I was like, what the fuck is that? Because it says it's like an AI companion piece of hardware. And I had this like gut instinct that that's something super cool, but I had no idea what it was. What's up, Bobby? And so I started reading about it, and I had all these questions like, what does it do? How does it work? What's it for? Why would you not have a phone? And as I went around the internet, I'm like, oh, this information is out there, but no one's put it together again. No one's put it together. I remember when I got into Helium, the same fucking thing happened. Like all the LoRaWAN information was out there. All the stuff on Helium was out there. If you just were willing to read and watch videos, I'm like, oh, I'm just going to run the same playbook. So I spent I bought one. It sold out like 5 minutes after I bought it. The first batch sold out. They thought they were going to sell 500. They've now sold 40,000 of these things.
Yeah.
I wrote this blog post and then I posted it because in the Discord, we were all asking each other, what does it do? Like, oh, it's got the screen. Here's what we think it can do. You can teach it stuff, whatever. I was like, oh, I'm going to fucking crush this. Put it up, and Rabbit reposted it, and they've got a ton of followers. And all of a sudden it's like,
oh, wow.
Yeah, a bunch of people reading about it. So,
oh, cool. I'll have to go read that article. I didn't catch that. I've definitely seen a ton of press around that. Like
Yeah.
this whole like AI wearables thing has been blowing up. We've got 𝐒𝐩𝐸. We've got that.
The pin. Yep.
There's like a necklace one.
Yep.
The so everyone's kind of chasing this.
Yeah.
To me, like the thing that should be the AI wearable is like the Apple Watch or your, Samsung whatever Gear watch. Like that's the thing you've already got on you. Like it should have that functionality. But right where we're at right now is it's going to be this other little thing that you carry around.
Yeah. I'm just gonna say on that one, no fucking comment, but
Oh, okay.
probably coming.
Yeah. I have to imagine. I know one guy who was formerly at Facebook and then went over to 𝐒𝐩𝐸𝐸, which is the one with a little laser projector on it. He
Yep.
wears a pin, and so like he's an incredible designer. So they're doing some real work on these things, but so it'll be curious to see how the space evolves.
Okay, so let's see. Yes, Jamie, someone said teenage engineering. I didn't know what these people did, and then I looked them up, and they designed this thing called the KO2, the Knockout 2, which is this little board. It looks super cool. It's got buttons on it and a fucking fader and some other stuff. And so I was like, oh, what does that do? Like, it looks like a badass calculator. There's a dude on YouTube called True Cuckoo or Cuckoo True. I think True Cuckoo. Dude, watch the fucking review of the KO2. It's just like it's incredible. He's just a fucking crazy dude. B, the stuff that he does with that thing, like you just push different buttons and different sounds come in and you start looping things in. It's all like synth music stuff I don't know anything about, and it just appeared to be magic. Where he's like, I'm gonna put this drum track down like bip, 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 bip. And then he says something, says yo into a speaker, and then he's like, oh yo 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 yo. It's just, and then within like 20 minutes, he's built this fucking song just pushing these buttons. It's goddamn amazing.
Yeah.
So
yeah. It's super cool stuff. I've started to learn that teenage engineering is somewhat in the DNA of Helium. I think it's a big source of inspiration for Peter Main, who's the designer that put together a lot of the identity on the Helium project, and now Nova Labs and all of that. So when I have to go into design sessions, I will just go and look at like teenage engineering things. Like I have to put together a menu. How did they do that on the the KO2 or whatever?
Yep.
And so I try to channel Pete via teenage engineering. Keep things a little consistent. But.
Yeah. Can you post a link to the story? What is if you just look at the Gristleking, so go to gristleking.com, look for the blog, look for the latest blog post. That's it, Derek. It's right there.
Yeah.
And then let's see the KO2. Oh, Bobby, just watch the YouTube. I fucking did the best I could to explain it. It's this amazing goddamn thing.
You're not going to beatbox some more for us?
Oh my God. Dude, it was so fucking cool, Joey. Okay, so I think we'll get back to this rabbit, and then I'll go to the last thing, Bobby's thing. When you say AI capabilities, is that like cook my dinner or something? What do you mean AI? So this is at the core of what the Rabbit R1 promise is all of us who have interacted with AI so far, for most kind of normal people, and by normal people, I mean, you're probably actually not that normal because you've used ChatGPT, which is not everyone has used yet, is you talk to it and it talks back and it tells you what to do, but it doesn't actually do it for you. I just built this inventory management system for my cookie company with Python using ChatGPT. It didn't actually execute any of the code. I just said, hey, this is what I want. Here's the recipe. Here are the ingredients. Here's what the ingredients cost. Like, how much does it cost me to make a batch of these? What's my dollar cost versus ingredient cost? Vanilla is more expensive than almond flour. I use more almond flour than vanilla. Like, show me a pie chart, all that stuff. ChatGPT wrote the code, but it didn't like hit the button to execute it and see what was going on. So those are LLMs, the large language models, that'll just like to listen to you and they'll talk back, but they won't do anything. The promise, and this is probably a fair amount of marketing with the Rabbit, is that it's not an LLM, but an LAM, which is a large action model. So it's got a camera in it. It can watch what you do. It can watch what you do in real life. So you can point it at something and be like, oh yeah, that's a bicycle. It can also, and mainly, it'll watch what you do on a screen when you ask it to. And so this is where it starts to get pretty interesting is let's say you're really good at video editing, right? I've been trying to do some video editing lately. It's super cool, but it's kind of hard. Like if you want to, I did this stupid superhero effect where it looks like you fall out of the sky and land on the ground like a superhero with one hand down and then, stand up and walk away. It's not that hard to do. It just takes like all these steps. If there's a video editor out there who's done that a bunch of times, and for them it's super easy to draw a mask around someone and put on an extra layer and do this nesting thing, like all these fucking crazy video things. Basically what they can do is they can have the rabbit watch them do that effect a couple times and talk it through what they're doing. Like, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm creating this layer and then I'm adding in this extra video. I'm drawing a mask around this body, et cetera, et cetera. They can then take that skill that they just recorded a couple times, put it on the Rabbit, basically app store, and say, anyone who wants to use my skill as a video editor, you can buy it. And so when you want to do the superhero effect, rather than having to be like Nick and going through and watching, 7 different YouTube videos and taking 4 hours to do a fucking 3-second shot, you just buy this thing and it's like, oh yeah, go outside, set your camera up like this, get these 2 shots, go back inside, plug your camera in, done.
Wow,
so
that's
this
cool.
idea of like selling skills or selling experience is at the core of what I think makes the Rabbit super interesting. Right. So we think of it, Joey, maybe a more relatable example for us is with decoders, right? So you've got your devices. At this point, I've probably figured out, I don't know, like 5 decoders, and I've worked on 40. Right. And you've probably worked on 100 or 1,000 or some enormous number. If someone gave me a new device and was like, hey, this thing is a whatever, XY, a skunk sensor. Here's how it works. Find the decoder for it. I can muddle through it. I'm pretty sure I could teach the Rabbit how to do that. And if they then handed me another device and said, well, this is a CO2 sensor, find a decoder, build a decoder for that, I could do that. By the time I'd done it the 3rd time with the Rabbit watching me, it could then be like, oh yeah, I got decoders. Here, you can now sell your decoder skill. Now, people on the open market might want to buy your decoder skill over mine because you've got more experience doing it, or Travis's or whoever's. And so the market ends up saying like, hey, when you buy decoders from Nick, they're actually not that good. Like they're good enough. When you buy it from Joey, they're pretty fucking amazing. And they're like beautifully designed. Nick's are $2, Joey's are $10. Like, what do you want to buy? But it basically takes like slices of your experience and allows you to sell them.
Huh. That's cool. And I think one of the layers there too is the way that we're used to interacting with technology is through keyboard or mouse or touching things, like, poking your way around, finding the buttons, and stripping a lot of that away and just talking the way that we naturally do it, right? Like that's how we problem solve person to person. So I think that's the big piece that kind of turns this all on its head, and why people are really excited about these like AI wearables is it's a new interaction paradigm for, it could very much become the phone replacement in a sense.
Yeah. So the guy who started the Rabbit R1, Jesse Liu, had this whole thread on Twitter, because this is the first question I've seen people ask is like, oh, why don't we just have that as an app? Like our phones are already, rocket ships. Why don't you use the phone as an app? And he basically said, look, the hardware capability you can put into one of these things that's specific to AI is actually better than a phone right now. It's if it does it on its own, and that's the thing it does, like it's not also doing X, Y, and Z, you can make it better, faster, stronger, all of that stuff. And then there's one other piece he had that was semi-persuasive, but when I think of it, like if I'm doing a couple different things, like let's say I get on my rowing machine and I would like to, for whatever reason, I want to take video of me rowing and send it to my aunt in England who's a rowing expert and have her critique it. And I also want to play my podcast and listen to it while I row. And I also want to see my heart rate. All of a sudden, I'm trying to do like 3 or 4 things at once on the phone, and the phone's only got so much real estate on the screen. So if I could say to this Rabbit, like, hey, just watch my rowing thing and like send a stream to my aunt while I listen to my podcast, like just having a separate device seems like a stupid thing, but just that alone makes a lot of things a lot easier. So,
right. Yeah. Plus it gives them full control too, I think, which is an important
they said something
aspect.
about having like their own OS or something. That's super important.
Yeah. Um, yeah, especially early when you're trying to like figure this stuff out. I think sometimes that latitude is really valuable. But,
Yeah.
yeah,
Cool. So
cool stuff.
we'll see that apparently batch 1 ships in March, April. I don't think it's February,
Wow,
March. I think it's March, April. And then Keenan
fast.
just said that they have batch 5, which is 50 fucking thousand of these things. So
Wow, wow.
one of the most amazing launches I've ever seen. So, Bobby, this is not linked to helium at all yet. But I mean, we just talked about how you could link it to decoders. You could link it to various things. I mean, I could walk out in my garden and be like, hey, Rabbit, that sensor there is a soil moisture sensor. That is a whatever sensor, a light sensor. That's a temperature sensor. Like, build me a dashboard for my garden. Right. And if
Yeah,
I've seen someone do that before, they're like, oh, cool.
yeah. That stuff should become increasingly trivial. There's so much reference for how to do that. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
I think, though, to your earlier point, like, it goes from all of this stuff right now, you can do it. Like, if I sit down and bang my head against enough YouTube videos and read enough blog posts and ask enough people, I can figure all of this shit out. But I can't talk to a device and be like, hey, here's my garden. Let me show it to you. Let me show you where these sensors are. Build me a dashboard. And the dashboard's built. Like, that's starts to get pretty fucking interesting because it speeds the whole thing up. So,
yep, yep. And
um,
democratizes it too. Like, you don't have to go have somebody else do it.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. And I mean, fuck, I should back off and say, like, I could be wrong on all this. It could be vaporware. The whole thing could explode. You know, it's fucking, it's internet stuff. Who knows?
Totally.
I think it's going to be
Yep.
good, but that's just me. And there's no stock in it yet. There is potential, and they'll fucking hate me for saying this because it'll start a bunch of bullshit rumors, but there is potential that they are interested in some kind of DePIN stuff. So
Interesting.
that would be cool.
Get a LoRa chip in there. That would be
Yeah.
some fun stuff.
Yep. Let's see. All right, Keaton. Perhaps I'm an old guy living in the past. I like purpose-built hardware too, like the Rabbit and the Flipper and the rest of them. So cool. And I think, Keenan, this was Jesse Liu's point, was that there's so many apps on your phone, it's hard to find the right app, and they get fucking confusing. And you've got a million of them. It's like, oh, you use this for this thing, you use that for that thing. It just gets it. I mean, it's like a elite first world problem where it's like, I've got so many apps. But there are more and more people using more and more apps, so that's it. Okay, the last thing I've got, Joey, is this VO2 mask thing, which we've talked about before. But so when I first started that, I had just found this project. Someone had built one. I printed out. So it's a DIY VO2 mask, so you can measure the volume of oxygen coming out of you. You can measure your athletic performance. It turns out, I didn't realize this, but there's like this giant public interest in VO2 in general, and you know, fancy influencers online are saying like, look, VO2 is super important and useful, and the rest of it. So I was just fucking around with it over the summer. I hired some guys to help me like build this thing and make it better and improve the design. And then for a reasonable reason, lost interest in it. Basically, I ran out of money. And then I spent the next couple of months like filling up the pipeline, so I had enough money. And then I kind of forgot about it. I was like, oh, it's sitting on the bench back there. And then actually Cam sent me a thing saying, hey, you know, there's a government grant for building a VO2 mask. And I didn't know. And so there's this enormous amount of money. I don't think I need even 10% of it to build one of these things and to provide 2 prototypes that work. So that's what I'm going to do for the next couple months. As like, there's like only 2 or 3 projects I can fucking manage at one time. And that's going to be one of them, is like saying, okay, how do I put together the engineers, the UX UI, the research scientists, like all this stuff to deliver what this grant wants, which is 2 working prototypes that you can basically strap on a soldier, whether they have a helmet on or not. They can start breathing into it. And it's like, oh yeah, here's your VO2. And then it walks you through a bunch of stuff.
So,
I'm so excited.
wow, I've got like 100 questions on this.
Yeah.
We've got like
got
7 minutes.
Go.
Yeah. So I guess, first of all, where's that grant coming from? Like, what departments are like
It's a
chasing this
SIBR
kind
grant.
of thing? SIBR.
So Small Business Innovation Research. And I think my feel for this is that in this like government grant world, people are really secretive because they don't want you to go after it. They don't want you to compete.
Right.
So And I'm pretty sure I feel like that's a stupid fucking thing, and that no person in their right mind would jump into this at this point and compete. But they might. It's a, what is it, Defense Health Administration or something grant. If you're really interested, what you should, and you're watching this, what you should do is actually come work with me on it, and we'll do it together. It'll be awesome. If you're a competitor, I'm going to try and fucking crush you. But yeah, I'd be happy to kind of share all that stuff with everybody. Yeah. So yeah. All right. What else you
got? Well, so, and then you mentioned soldiers, like, so you're looking for something that is ultimately really robust, can sort of sit, out of somebody's way. Is it intended that they wear it like all the time, or is it like a training only kind of thing? Like, how's that?
Yeah. So the idea is that basically the military, the DoD, is saying, holy shit, America is getting fatter and in worse and worse shape. We can't recruit soldiers that are fit. And when we do recruit soldiers who are fit, unless they're whatever elite badasses, most of our soldiers are fucking fat and out of shape, right? Now, this is like, I should never say this stuff because it's all fucking terrible. But at the end of the day, if you want to fight a war with people, they got to be badass fucking gorillas who are in shape and like ready to fucking tear people apart and kill them. You can't do that as an out of shape person. So military seeing that, they're like, hey, we need better ways to make sure that we're tracking folks. We're actually losing people. We're losing soldiers because they're getting so fat and out of shape that we have to separate them, right? Because the military has standards. If you're this high, you can't weigh more than this because that means you're outside of reg. So they've got to figure out ways to do it. Someone has convinced them that having a VO2 mask will allow them to track that better and to give people better guidance. And it probably will, because once you put that on and you start breathing for a workout, like if I go do a 30-minute row with this thing on, if you measure both oxygen and CO2, it can tell you how many calories you burnt, which is kind of cool. It will also tell you how many of those were fat and carb calories. So it can then say, hey, Nick, you just rode for 30 minutes at like a reasonable heart rate. Here's what you need to refeed for your meal. Like, don't eat more than this many fat calories. Don't eat more than this many carb calories. And those could be really different if I'm doing intervals, 2-minute intervals with a 5-minute rest versus 30 minutes at a steady state.
Right. You're sort of peeling back the layers on the black box of exercise, effectively.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. And I guess my last question of my million questions, but are you like, early on you were trying to play with LoRaWAN in the stack here? Is that sort of still a goal? Or you try Bluetooth? Like, what's the?
So it's a weird thing. They're like, hey, it's got to have Bluetooth, but it can't have Bluetooth only. And I was like, oh, well, have I got a fucking protocol for you? So I think I've been interviewing engineers for this all week. And I talked to this guy yesterday who was really good. I've talked to some really good guys. I don't think I'll go wrong with any of the ones I end up going with. But this dude yesterday was fucking on fire. And he was like, oh, you could use this thing. You could use that thing. You could use this thing. We could do Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, and it could connect to this and wazoo that. And at the end, I was like, hey, I got to be careful saying this, but I'm kind of a LoRaWAN geek and a LoRa geek. Like, is that out of the question? He's like, no, like, you'll give up your position, but it's not out of the question. Like, well, it doesn't matter because it's fucking training, so who cares? Versus Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, which just don't go that far. LoRa, you could, if you were another agency or another government, be like, oh, I want to watch all these guys train when they train. Which I don't think is that big of a deal.
If that other government or agency can tell you where you are on a field, I want to know how they're doing that. That's a skill.
Yeah, I bet they could. I mean, I remember when North Korea was like, that's where I was going to go if I went anywhere. They were really on top of the whole DFing thing. They're like, hey, like, we had really strict radio protocols about how long you can be on and how much you can transmit and the rest of it. Now that's just regular RF, and you're going up against a nation state.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm guessing like the Israelis, the Chinese, the Iranians, the U.S. Like, there's some super secret folks out there that are like, yeah, we're pretty good at that.
Yeah.
Maybe
I mean,
not. Maybe
definitely
in helium.
You could tell if people were on base and kind of what's going on for sure.
Yeah.
But you could probably do that with Wi-Fi anyway. So it's an interesting thing to be considering.
Yeah.
But
because they did say like, hey, if this thing goes, there'll probably be more security concerns. And I just look at holy shit, there's so many resources behind this because it's the U.S. government. Is that instead of me just doing it, like what I was going to do before was just like, oh, I'll just keep paying engineers to kind of do this stuff piecemeal, is I could actually put together a pretty badass team and come out with a product that's fucking rocking. Because the next product out there, and I would not be surprised at all if this grant was written for a company called VO2 Master, and you can look at them, vo2master.com. They've got this thing, but their device is $5,800. I'll leave you with this last funny thing, Joey, and then we'll wrap it up. Unless you want to fucking sit there and talk for a while. When these grants go, you're allowed to write into the grant, whatever, I forget what they're called, their point of contact, and ask questions. And there are some questions, not that you can't ask, but that they won't answer. Like, hey, how do I get this grant, or what's your favorite ice cream? Because I want to send you some. Like, they won't do that at all. But if you're like, hey, as an example, can I use folks who are not U.S. citizens? They'll write back and be like, nope, this is full U.S. citizens only. You know, does this part matter? They'll say yes or no. So the question I asked them yesterday, and I got an answer back this morning, I'm like, hey, it says that you guys want a low-cost sensor. What does low-cost mean to you? And they're like, oh, I wrote back to like something under $10,000. Like, I know I'm talking to the U.S. government.
Yeah. Well, as you start pulling some prototypes together, a buddy of mine is an industrial designer that does commercial grade heads-up displays. So there could be some really cool synergies to talk with somebody like that too. So we're talking like stuff that gets used in oil fields and stuff like that. Really robust, safe, all that fun stuff. So
I need
keep me posted on this project. This sounds cool.
UX guy. Yeah, and I thought the other thing that I would do is, because all of these projects have been so fucking secret. Like when I look around for it, people don't want to compete. They don't want to talk about it. They won't give anywhere near the information I just give in the past 10 minutes. I was like, fuck it. Why don't I build like pretty much the whole thing in the open? Say what I'm going to do, try and do it. And I'm pretty sure that there are people who watch this, or people watching this know, that are like, oh yeah, the guy you should talk, just like you just did, the guy you should talk to is this UX guy. And I think by being open, that's just way more an advantage than keeping it super closed. And if I'm wrong, fine, someone else fucking wins it. I got so many goddamn things to do that if I lose this, not that big of a deal.
Right. Yeah, no, my guy, he does hardware design. So badass. It's the cases, the impact ratings, all that fun stuff. But,
that's what I need, because this engineer guy's like, oh, I do product design, but I'm thinking like, I want this thing to be badass. Like, you put it on, and not only does it work, but you look in the mirror, you're like, I'm like Alien. I'm like a fucking goddamn monster. Hell yeah.
Yeah. It actually makes you run faster because
it gives you wings or whatever. It gives you fucking dragon breath or whatever it is.
Yeah. Well, that's killer. I'll look forward to following along with that.
Super cool, exciting stuff. Thanks for coming along. Good to see you today. And fucking A. That's all the news I had for Deep into the Gristleking life. We'll talk to you guys later. Ciao.
Killer. Bye.